Okay, picture this. You've just won the lottery. It's literally the moment people daydream about their entire lives, right? But here's the thing nobody tells you. That very first choice you have to make about how you actually get the money, it could completely dictate whether you build lasting generational wealth or end up facing total financial ruin. Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the ultimate thought experiment, breaking down the cold, hard logic behind the annuity versus cash decision. Imagine waking up tomorrow, checking your ticket, and boom, you find out you just won that staggering Mega Millions jackpot we saw in the Washington Post, estimated at an unbelievable $1.22 billion. Suddenly, you're sitting on more wealth than a lot of mid-sized corporations. The sheer scale of that kind of money is, honestly, almost impossible for the human brain to truly wrap its head around. But right out of the gate, you're hit with the first and absolutely most consequential decision you're going to make. Do you take that massive cash lump sum right this second? Or do you go with the slow, guaranteed trickle of an annuity spread over the next 30 years? Now, most people just impulsively grab the cash. But as we're about to see, financial experts warn that going with your gut on this could be a catastrophic mistake. Look, before you go spending a single dime in your head, we have to look at the track record here. Data suggests that up to 70% of lottery winners, and by the way, this includes massive numbers of pro athletes who run into sudden wealth, end up completely bankrupt within just a few years. It sounds impossible, right? How on earth does someone blow through hundreds of millions of dollars?
Well, let's jump right into Section 1, the sudden wealth curse.
So this rapid influx of money triggers something experts view as a legitimate psychological trauma. Psychologist Dr. Stephen Goldbart actually coined a term for it, sudden wealth syndrome. It's not just about, being bad at budgeting, it's a total identity crisis. Winners get hit with this heavy, isolating loneliness, crippling paranoia that they'll lose it all, intense guilt because they didn't really earn it, and just profound psychological shock. It's a massive burden. Neuroscientists say your brain basically gets hijacked. You get slammed with this overwhelming flood of dopamine that completely impairs your ability to make rational choices. Trying to figure out complex financial structures while you're riding this chemical high? They describe it as being like trying to perform surgery on a roller coaster. You're just not in the right headspace to make those calls. And then you step right onto what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. See, as humans, we eventually return to our baseline level of happiness, no matter what happens to us. So the thrill of buying a huge new mansion, it totally evaporates after a few months. But you want that high back, right? So you start chasing it, buying more and more expensive things in this vicious cycle that just never ends.
Which brings us to Section 2, the math, cash versus annuity.
With your own brain chemistry actively working against you, let's strip away the emotion and just look at the objective financial logic of the choice. An annuity gives you guaranteed growing income, often with a 5% annual bump, just to fight inflation. It acts like strict guardrails against overspending and keeps you in potentially lower tax brackets. Taking the lump sum, though, that triggers immediate maximum taxes. Sure, the cash gives you the potential for massive capital gains if you're a great investor, but it removes every single guardrail, leaving you totally exposed to your own worst impulses. This is a perfect example of the time value of money. To actually beat a typical 30-year annuity payout over your lifetime, you'd have to take your post-tax lump sum and find an investment that guarantees at least a 4.6% annual return year in and year out for 40 years. And let's be real, locking in a totally risk-free return at that rate in today's market is incredibly difficult. This is exactly why a lot of savvy pro athletes choose structured annuity settlements. Think about sports legends like Bobby Bonilla, Ken Griffey Jr., and more recently, Shohei Ohtani. They get hit with sudden wealth too, and they purposefully structure their contracts to pay out over decades. Why? To protect themselves from burning through their riches too fast and to lock down their long-term financial security.
All right, Section 3, the psychological trap and buying liabilities.
So what happens when that cold, hard math crashes into the fragile psychology of a normal person without a ton of financial education? Look, most winners have zero framework for this. They haven't spent years managing investments or mitigating taxes. Handing an ordinary person millions of unearned dollars is literally like handing an untrained driver the keys to a Formula One race car and expecting them to handle rush hour traffic. A spectacular crash isn't just a possibility, it's practically guaranteed. And sadly, we see it fail over and over again. Willie Hurt won big, but descended into addiction. William Bud Post? His own brother tried to hire a hitman to murder him for the money. Evelyn Adams gambled away her entire fortune, and Janet Leigh was absolutely crushed by debt from massive political donations. When you look at the cash flow, their fatal mistake is super obvious. Instead of buying assets that generate more money, like index funds or real estate, they load up on massive liabilities. We're talking private jets, sports cars, sprawling mansions. These don't just cost a fortune up front, they aggressively drain your cash flow every single month through taxes, massive insurance premiums, and constant maintenance.
But here's where things get kind of wild. Some psychologists point out a really counterintuitive psychological flip. For some people, getting that massive lump sum actually feels finite. It feels so serious that it triggers careful saving and investing. On the flip side, getting a huge monthly annuity check can feel like renewable income, which might actually encourage careless spending because, hey, another massive check is just a few weeks away. It's a fascinating little paradox.
Let's wrap things up with Section 4, How to Survive Winning.
Knowing the math and all those psychological landmines, what's the actual blueprint for surviving a windfall like this? The absolute most crucial thing is following an expert protocol immediately. First, hire a fiduciary and a CPA before you even claim the ticket. Second, stay completely anonymous if your state lets you. Third, keep your daily routine. And fourth, you have to set unbreakable boundaries on your generosity because you literally cannot fund every single emergency your friends and family are going to bring you.
Get this. Research shows that only about 12% of lottery winners who successfully navigate the windfall actually quit their jobs. Crazy, right? But work provides identity, it provides community and daily purpose. It keeps that psychological void at bay. If you strip all that away overnight, you're just left floating in this dangerous void with nothing but a giant pile of cash to fill it.
So at the end of the day, winning the lottery isn't just about getting rich. It's a high-stakes psychological stress test where our deep evolutionary wiring for scarcity is actively working against us. Which leaves us with one final, pretty uncomfortable question. If those numbers hit for you tomorrow, are you truly equipped to handle the burden of absolute abundance? Thanks for hanging out with me on The Explainer today. See you next time.
Knowledge grows through sharing. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to grow together.